people remember his Goblin token. He is playing a blue strategy, as per Deathblade, playing against Jim Davis, who earlier today in the top 4 with his very innovative take on blue-white control, no banishing lights, no detention spheres, planar cleansings instead. Had a great match against Ross Merriam. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend that you do. And now he is playing Goblin, tried and true. Now he's losing the game because the opponent has a Deathrite Shaman.
Well, it does complicate matters quite a bit for Goblin Lackey and friends.
Now, one thing that Jim has adopted is a card I actually moved into Goblins, I believe, last year. 3 copies of Tarfire because of Deathrite Shaman, and it's super annoying. Now, what I don't think Jim has is red mana, which is going to be a bit of an issue. He has a Cavern of Souls.
He has a Cavern, yeah.
But he doesn't actually have red mana to cast a Tarfire or to cycle a Gem Palm Incinerator. So this could be a bit of an issue here. Smith's going to sacrifice a Polluted Delta.
He is definitely at the mercy of Erik's draw if he's not able to find red mana. And Erik's draw so far excellent here. Deathrite Shaman into Stoneforge Mystic, finding Umazawa's Jitte, threatening to put Jim out of the game before it really even starts.
Erik is playing the best cards I've ever seen in my entire life. You have to be kidding me. This is...
As per Deathblade is the collection of the best cards.
A Deathrite Shaman into Stoneforge Mystic is borderline unbeatable for the Goblin Tribe.
Just some Tarfires.
We're going to need quite a few.
You know, some Tarfires.
And real soon.
Just say it. Just a little Tarfire.
Jim picked up a copy of Aether Vial for the turn. Again, has a Cavern of Souls.
This matchup seems rough.
You're putting it very nicely. Thank you.
This is a challenging opening.
It's certainly not good when you're on the draw and you don't have a turn 1 play. I think at this point to play Goblins, you almost have to mulligan into a turn 1 play every time to be able to keep up, because a card like Jitte can put you so far behind. Stoneforge can. Deathrite accelerates them. True Name is very, very difficult to beat. I think you have to do something on turn 1. And you almost become a different kind of deck now where like you have to play a turn 1 Lackey and then Tarfire their play and hit, because that's so important. So the dynamic has changed so much in Legacy to where Goblins used to prey on blue control decks, but the blue control decks have creatures now. So it's much different. And they have really good creatures. Here's a Ponder.
And there is a Tin Street Hooligan in Jim's hand too. So there are some ways for him to try to fight equipment.
See Smith going to take a look at some cards here with a Ponder. Currently looking in his hand at a Brainstorm and a Jitte, among other things to do. It is an uphill climb here for the old Goblin strategy, but they can win.
I mean, if he's able to just keep Erik from having creatures, which is reasonable when he has Gem Palm Incinerator and Tarfire in his deck, then he's got a shot.
Vial going to tick up to 1 here.
He certainly needs to find a mountain very soon.
Cavern of Souls number 2 comes rolling off the top.
Perfect.
I mean, it allows him. It will allow him to cast Tin Street Hooligan. Now, of course, what he doesn't want to do is put a Goblin War Chief into play, because there is a non-bow with that and Tin Street Hooligan.
Yeah, you cannot pay red and green mana, right?
No,
and it's a red and a colorless?
Yes.
Weird.
The old non-bow. Cavern of Souls number 2. Going to be naming Goblin, of course.
The Goblins get so excited when the War Chief is in play that sometimes they forget about their higher calling.
They do. This particular Goblin's goal is to kill an artifact. Davis trying to figure out what he can do about what's going on here. Now, this might be a situation where he just casts Goblin War Chief as a blocker. I could also see him just playing Mog War Marshal.
Because Erik has to attack with one of his creatures to get any counters on the Jitte, obviously. I'm sure Jim is thrilled to trade a War Marshal with either Stoneforge Mystic or Deathrite Shaman.
Absolutely. Here's Jitte. Gonna tap something here with the port. And the thing about Goblins is it's a critical mass deck. You know, it's one creature by itself isn't going to do anything. And to highlight that, you look at the card Goblin Pile Driver as proof of that effect. Now, the goal is to have a lot of different things in play and swarming your opponent. So the reason Jim didn't cast anything there is because one creature's not going to do anything in this situation. So the Jitte is going to get active, and it's going to get 2 counters on it. But Jim knew that was going to happen anyway because he knows that Erik searched for it. Yep. So now he's able to play Tin Street Hooligan next turn, tick his Vial up to 2, and start to try to grind the game out that way.
And if you look at Jim's hand, there's a lot of tools in it. I mean, he's got multiple Lords, a Siege Gang Commander, some real power in that hand.
And this all just relies on him kind of playing the role of the control deck and just playing a longer game. Here's another copy of Deathrite Shaman. And with any luck for him, able to get that Siege Gang into play, that's many turns down the road, but, that's the ultimate game plan here.
Although, again, Siege Gang fairly anemic until Jim finds multiple sources of red mana.
Oh, there's number 1 in Snow-Covered Mountain. Jim always playing the snow-covered lands.
Listen, I have nothing but respect for Jim Davis's game, but these snow-covered mountains have got to go. We know you're not skretting.
The man likes the snow-covered mountain. How dare you judge him?
Does Goblin Rock Sled require snow-covered lands? I actually don't even know if it's a Goblin. I think it's just a Rock Sled. We're going to have to go to the tape.
That's really good design. We're going to go to the tape. 10th Street Hooligan is going to come into play, enhanced. Going to take care of the Jite. Smith is going to respond by removing 1 counter to take care of 10th Street and then gain 2 life. So 10th Street has done its job.
Now, if he's bluffing Goblin Rock Sled, then I take it all back.
It's a good bluff. That's what I think. Jim's trying to figure out what Goblin he wants to cast now.
Yeah.
He can play Pile Driver or Mog War Marshal, but of course Vial is going to allow him to ambush something. However, if you're Eric Smith and your opponent casts a 2-mana Goblin and you have a Vial on 2, then you have to imagine that, okay, he has another 2-mana Goblin in his hand. So.
No, it has nothing to do with snow-covered lands. Never mind.
You would think it would. A Rock Sled? You'd think so. Here's a Pile Driver.
Just had to check.
That's fair. Going to the tape, always a good idea. Deathrite Shaman going to take care of this Pile Driver via Swords to Plowshares. Smith gonna untap. He will take a draw. You see his hand Stoneforge, Mystic, Jace, and Brainstorm. Each of those cards better than every single card in the Goblin deck. Must be nice.
Again, it's about a critical mass, as
Yes,
you
it
mentioned
is.
before.
Yes, it is.
So how significant do you find Batterskull to be in the matchup?
Depends how much artifact removal you have, honestly. I mean, you can get into board positions where you can just swarm them, and you can make your way through Batterskull with Mog War Marshal tokens, Siege Gang tokens. You can definitely get yourself in that situation. Of course, Batterskull on True Name is unbeatable.
Yeah.
But Batterskull by itself, it can be beat. It can be beat.
Well, we're about to find out.
Yes, we are. As Smith has played that and has the ability to put it in through the other Stoneforge Mystic that is in play. And he has no interest in making any attacks here.
And this, unlike his copy of Umezawa's Jite, Erik is fully capable of just protecting the entire game from 10th Street Hooligan if he's cautious with his mana.
Yeah. Here I am, ready to die to one of those awesome creatures.
I sense a hint of resentment in your voice, looking at the cards in Jim's hand juxtaposed with the cards in Erik's hand.
What makes you think that?
You are annoyed every time Erik resolves a spell.
Well, every card he plays is way too good. So there's that. Now, one thing I actually do like about Jim's deck is that he has multiple copies of 10th Street this weekend, 2 copies in his main deck. Some versions you see with Tuk Tuk Scrapper, some other things like that. So I actually do like that he has multiple ways to kill artifacts, because it's actually pretty important.
Yes. The most regular thing that Goblins has to lose to in a Legacy tournament is equipment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Looks like he's going to pay Echo on the Mog War Marshal. Take a draw. A Tar Fire. Now, of course, the reason Tar Fire is in here, it takes care of Deathrite Shaman, takes care of Stoneforge Mystic, takes care of any goblins and the chance you run into the mirror. Very good against an Insectile Aberration or Delver of Secrets. So it actually has a lot of applications in the format. It can also be found via Goblin Matron and Goblin Ringleader.
That's the big one, too. Why is the card better than Lightning Bolt? Because you have some tribal synergies to go along with it.
Jim going to tap down the Creeping Tar Pit here. And again, he's got to get a little creative. Now, the one thing here for Jim that is really good is that you take a look at his life total. He's at 20. 20 is a really good place to be. Eric Smith's going to cast a Brainstorm here, so you're going to get a couple cards deeper. You see Snapcaster Mage, Polluted Delta, and a Flooded Strand. Those fetch lands are important for Deathrite Shaman. But Jim being at 20 means that, even though the things that Smith has in play, 2 Deathrite Shamans, 2 Stoneforge Mystics, to Batterskull, those are all incredibly good cards, of course, and he has a Jace in his hand. Again, because he's at such a high life total, he can grind this game down.
That's the thing. Goblins has the character, of course, it's a red deck with a bunch of creatures in it. It's really easy to get into the assumption that it's just a beatdown deck, but Jim can power his way through all this stuff given enough time.
This is, even though it's labeled as Goblins, this is mono red control.
Yeah.
That's what this deck is. I mean, it can kill you fast some draws with Goblin Pile Driver and stuff like that. This is a control deck. It has a lot of card advantage. It has a lot of card advantage in Matron, which is basically Demonic Tutor, a lot of the times for free through a Vial. Ringleader, which is a draw 3 or a draw 4 a high percentage of the time. It messes with your mana with Port and Wasteland. All those things. It's a control deck, and it used to prey on counterbalance decks and miracles and things like that. However, some things have changed with new cards coming in, like True Nemesis and Deathrite Shaman, some other cards that I'm not thinking of right now.
Terminus.
So, yeah, I mean, that card is good and bad against you.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like it's good against you because it's a Wrath effect, but it's not that good against you because it puts all your creatures back into your deck. So even though all your creatures die, you get to reload it and actually use them again.
And you have so much Surge.
Yeah. If it were Wrath or Supreme Verdict, that'd be bad because the creatures are gone forever.
Yeah.
So Jim is trying to figure out a way that he can snag that Battered Skull with another Tinchery Tool. And part of the reason that he tapped that Creeping Tar Pit, I think, is that his goal was, okay, I will tap another land on your upkeep, or excuse me, on my upkeep, and then Tinchery because you don't have the necessary mana to bounce it. But because he has a Delta and drew a land, like if Jim were, for example, tap an Underground Sea right now, he wouldn't be able to actually Tinchery that because Smith would sacrifice the Delta, and then you have a fetch land for the Deathrite Shaman. And now there's an Arid Mason in the graveyard as well, so that game plan goes a little bit up in smoke.
And if Erik only had one Deathrite Shaman, then he could start off by tar firing the Deathrite.
Yes.
But there's the second Deathrite in play, so.
Jimmy had to go searching for a land. He's going to go with a Taiga.
Someone on Twitter pointed out to me that Goblin Ski Patrol was the Goblin I was thinking of.
Oh, of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? Can you bring up Goblin Ski Patrol? Shows how little you know.
Yeah. So that's good. Get that bad boy on the screen momentarily.
Well, it's probably just like the best card ever. Oh boy, look at the artwork on that. 2 mana, 1/1, flying and +2/+0. At the end of turn, it dies?
Do you know why? Because it's skiing off the cliff.
Ah, yeah.
That's the background of the art indicates what's going on there, as you can see.
Those are my boys.
Yeah, and you can only use that power because they need to ski downhill, of course.
Yep.
You can only use that power if you control a snow-covered mountain. So.
I'll tell you, that makes perfect sense to me.
And that's a threatening card to vial out. Again, it can block an Insectile Aberration that's flipped. Good to know about these things.
Yes. I believe we have found the problem. Nasty Nick 925 on Twitter is upset that there is a creature type Rock Sled but no Giraffe.
Well, I think that Goblin Ski Patrol was rolled into the creature type errata. I think it's a Goblin now.
Fair enough.
Because summon Rock Sled's kind of nonsense.
A Snapcaster Mage going to join the party here, takes care of the Siege Gang Commander. Now a Thoughtseize.
And this Thoughtseize is really bad for Jim here, as that Tinchery Hooligan is really his only long-term way of finagling through this Batter Skull. He's losing his second copy right now.
The other thing that's really tough is that he's lost his Siege Gang Commander. Jim used to play 2 of that card. He's only playing 1. So, having that effect to be able to sacrifice goblins and stop the lifelink, as there goes the Tin Street, going to be difficult to overcome that now as well. And now a Jace. I swear that both of these players are playing Legacy.
Yep.
They're playing the same format.
And both players volunteered to play the decks they're playing. It wasn't like, it's not sealed deck. You don't get handed a deck at random at the start of the tournament. You choose. I mean, maybe you own the cards, maybe you don't. That can be a bottleneck. But you have total agency over the cards you would like to play. And the board is what it is right now.
That's definitely true. That is definitely true. In comes Batterskull. You know that I've actually beaten Esper Deathblade before, playing Goblins? I can't imagine how I did that now.
I don't know if Jim just had a Tarfire he could cast on turn 1, I think he would have been fine this game.
Yeah, it's
would have
probably
been
a much different
competitive.
game.
Would have been competitive. He fell behind because of Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah. Vile going to take up to 4. Looking for a Ringleader or a Matron now. Wasteland really not going to help very much, even though the card is great against this deck. So he is going to put that into play. He's going to fire that out to take care of the Creeping Tar Pit.
What the funniest thing about all of this, to me, setting aside the fact that Erik has, a half dozen completely busted cards in play to Jim's sea of 1/1s, is the fact that so many of Erik's creatures are incidentally 1/2s. It's like the biggest rub-in of them all.
Yeah, neither Stoneforge Mystic or Deathrite should be a 1-2. I have had this conversation multiple times.
I'd argue that Deathrite Shaman should probably be a 1-1 and that Stoneforge Mystic should probably not exist.
That's fair. That's fair.
It is just the final rub-in in all of this is just how many of them are 1-2s.
Well, it's like, that's cool. Those cards are really good. They tutor for things and have a lot of text. But I should at least be able to attack.
Right, just let me hit you for a few points of damage before you lock me out of the game.
Yeah, that's all I ask. Mogwar Marshal going to block. Another token will come into play. Jace is going to Fate Seal. Leave the top card on top here for Davis. Looks like Smith has something else to cast here. It is another copy of Stoneforge Mystic. No more equipment to get, thank heavens. Passes the turn back over to Davis, who draws a card. He knew what it was going to be, and it's a Goblin Lackey. Nice.
Oh yeah, that is sweet. The one busted card in Jim's deck, and it's a 1-1.
You won't be laughing when it hits Erik Smith in game 2, buddy. Smith going to leave the card on top with Jace yet again. Here comes Brian Braun to win on a Batter Skull. Jim is in chump block mode. Now, this is actually, I don't know, this is actually kind of one of the ways you can beat Batter Skull is you just keep blocking with those tokens, and hopefully at some point you're able to amass an advantage with Ringleader and Matron, and because a lot of the times when you're playing Goblin, all it takes is one Ringleader or one Matron to actually get back into the game.
Yeah.
Oddly enough. So even though Jim is, getting kind of annihilated right now, as Jace is going to Fate Seal and leave the card on top again, it's one of those cards that actually gets him back into the game. It might be too little too late now. Jim going to draw a copy of Aether Vial, put that into play and pass the turn back. Smith is going to use his Deathrite Shaman to remove something here. Looks like it's going to be the Tarfire. Smith draws a card. It's a Brainstorm. There's actually a mystery. I think there's like a new mystery card hiding out in his hand.
Council's
Judgment? Is it Council? I knew it. Council's Judgment, a new card from Conspiracy. It's a way to kill True Name Nemesis.
Yes.
That's what it is.
It's very oddly worded, but it basically allows you to target and kill a True Name Nemesis.
Yes, the will of the Council is what Council's Judgment does do. And we'll take a look at that at the next game. But for right now, Erik Smith is going to win game number 1 here over Jim Davis. You've got Esper Deathblade up a game over Goblins as we are going to take a look at the sideboards here. And as we do, I will start with Jim Davis's, see what he wants to work with. He's got a Goblin Sharpshooter, an Ancient Grudge, a Stink Scourger, 3 copies of Pyrokinesis, 3 copies of Relic Progenitus, 2 Mindbreak Trap, and 4 Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. I think the best card that Jim can actually bring in here is a Pyrokinesis. Some number of those as that can take care of Deathrite Shaman, Stoneforge Mystic, and kill Batter Skull. A lot of utility there. Yes, you do have to give up a red card to do so, but if things are going appropriately, your hand will be flush with some red cards that you simply don't need.
Yeah, can't cast, or you've just drawn so many extra cards that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so I think that's his best option. Stink Scourger is okay. It can bounce a Germ token sometimes. You can work things around that way. Of course, Stink Scourger can only bounce their creatures. You can't bounce your own and get value that way. Sharpshooter, not really for this matchup, more for Elves. Grudge, I actually kind of like as a one of bringing that in. We saw the power of Batter Skull that game. I imagine if Jim actually does draw a copy of Ancient Grudge, it'll be good. And then, Mindbreak Trap, Thalia, Relic, not really for this matchup.
And on Erik's side, 2 Supreme Verdict, 2 Zealous Persecution, a Path to Exile, 3 Surgical Extraction, a Disenchant, a Force of Will, an Inquisition, a Vendilion Click, 2 Spell Pierce, and a False Restore. I like bringing in the Inquisition, as Jim, of course, has no end of powerful, cheap cards. I would bring in the Path, the 2 Zealous Persecutions, and the 2 Supreme Verdicts. Just more creature removal. Pretty straightforward stuff.
I was waiting for you to tell me that Erik had Engineered Plague.
No.
So thanks for holding back on that.
Erik is citing into multiple copies of Tividar's Crusade.
Yeah, absolutely he is. And of course, a singleton Tividar of Thorn. Because why not?
Yeah.
If you guys are just joining us at home, Setter Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series here in Providence, Rhode Island. We are 1 week away from our Season 2 Invitational. Ross Merriam does win the last Standard Open of Season 2. With Mono Blue Devotion. He's 3-0 right now here in our Legacy Open, the last of Season 2. With looks to be combo elves. Right now, we are watching Jim Davis do battle against Erik Smith. An uphill climb here for the Goblins players, sitting at 2-1. Smith, former Invitational champion with Esper Deathblade.
Have you ever been hit with a Tividar's Crusade in your time playing Goblins?
Thankfully, I have not. That would be like me asking if you've been hit by a city in a bottle.
No, I actually don't mind that. If that ever happened, it can't happen now because the rules changed. But
Okay.
even back in the day when it could, because that meant that someone wanted it. You know, it's one thing if they beat you with Umazawa's Jitte, because they're not even trying at that point.
Sure.
Someone cast a Tividar's Crusade. They had you in mind. They wanted to win that matchup.
They wanted to play against me
Yeah.
and beat me with that card. And if that happened, that's cool. I can't be mad about
totally
that.
Fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want it.
I remember a match I was playing in Goblins at the Invitational in Indianapolis last year. Playing against, I believe his name was Evan West. He ended up making top 8 that week with Shardless Bug. And I remember game 1, he crushed me. In game 2, we are playing just a long slog it out, back and forth affair, just going at it against each other. I'm resolving ringleaders and matrons, and he is resolving ancestral visions off of Shardlesses and brainstorming and jacing and all these things. And at the end of this 20 or 25 minute game, at the end of the game, he goes, "Man, I didn't know you could keep up with cards with me like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, that was really cool." And then game 2, he just played a Deathrite Shaman and Engineered Plague. Good. The game 2 was so much fun. We were just playing Magic, and then game 3, you just turn 1, fetch land, Deathrite, turn 2, E-Plague. You lose.
Again.
Get out of my tournament.
Again, it's all voluntary.
It is.
It's not a sealed deck.
I did choose.
Not a sealed deck
I
tournament.
did choose, and he chose his deck.
Yeah.
Which made me believe that in game 2, I actually probably got really lucky that as we were going through that long game and seeing all those cards, he didn't see an E-Plague at any point.
Yeah.
So I probably just got lucky.
He did draw. Yeah, he probably had one in the sideboard, in fairness.
Yeah. With how much fetching and brainstorming and chasing is doing, I was actually kind of surprised he didn't find an Engineered Plague. Dave was taking a look at his opening hand here. Got a couple of copies of Cavern. I think this is an issue where he has Cavern, maybe even has a Vial, but the problem is he doesn't have red mana for like a Tarfire.
It looks like his hand has multiple Tarfires in it as well.
This is one of the things that you have to be really careful of with Cavern of Souls in this deck, simply because, when you're playing Tarfire, you're playing Siege Gang Commander, you're playing Gem Palm Center, you actually need mountains to be able to operate with those cards, and those cards are very time sensitive. So the inability to actually activate Cycle or actually cast Tarfire is a big deal. Davis going to draw a card here. There's a mountain off the top. Here's a Rashad Port, so he's going to tap that down. Made it out of the first turn alive. No Deathrite Shaman.
Andrew a mountain. So his hand's fully operational now.
Now his hand is functional and good.
Yeah,
I think. Here's the Marsh Flats. Smith will pass the turn back over to Davis to take a draw. There's a Goblin Ringleader.
His hand's really heating up a little bit for Jim.
Port's going to tap down that Tundra yet again. Here's a Tundra for Smith. He's going to sacrifice Marsh Flats right now. Gonna go a search-in, I believe, probably a Stoneforge, yeah.
So he's going to shortcut through the 2 searches he has to do this turn.
Well, unfortunately for Stoneforge Mystic, I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Tarfire that.
That was Jim's first real good turn of the match thus far.
Well, there are many more to come.
That was his first good turn, and I feel like, yep, there's going to be some more coming.
Port number 2. It's time to ring lead through the Cavern so it can't be countered. Take a look at some cards. Vial, Lackey, Tarfire, Matron.
Ooh.
Ding, ding, ding.
Jim's getting a little momentum.
And in for 2 as well. Don't forget those 2 points of damage. Ringleader with the haste. Smith going to go down to 17.
Jim with old red Jace over there. Slightly higher opportunity cost in deck building.
Did you just call that a red Jace?
Red Jace.
Thank you. That's really nice of you. Brainstorm. What's the red Brainstorm?
Winds of Change, I guess.
Sure.
Draw 3, discard 3 at random.
Yeah. Good enough. Smith's going to figure out which other card to put back. You see a Supreme Variety from Dillian Click. A lot of good ones in his hand right now.
Although not clear how good Click is in this matchup. It's pretty incidental for Jim to get rid of that with Gem Palm Incinerator and Tarfire and such.
Another copy of Stoneforge Mystic. Smith doing this simply to shuffle his deck. He has both equipment, I believe, in his hand. He may have put one back so he could search for it, make it a super good brainstorm.
Yeah.
There's Batter Skull.
So Jim's Tin Street Hooligans are going to have some work to do this game.
They always do. They always do. Davis going to untap. He'll take a draw. Picks up a copy of the War Chief.
He's got quite a few Tar Fires in his hand alongside Pyrokinesis, and this is what you spoke to before of plenty of incidental cards to throw away now that Jim's seen so many cards.
Yeah, you know, that Goblin Lackey, for example, it isn't getting any better. So that's a good card to throw away to Pyrokinesis. You see Ringleader's going to come in for 2 here. Tarfire is going to get that Stoneforge off the table. Going to make Erik pay full price for a card like Batterskull. Here's another copy of Cavernous Souls. And what Jim is able to do here, we'll see if he wants to commit something else to the board, because now he can start double porting and really go after Erik's lands, because Esper Deathblade has this really expensive and dual land laden mana base, but you can mess with it with Ports and Wastelands.
Yeah, and especially now with the he has the ability the following turn, for example, to play a Lackey and port twice again. He can really stunt Erik's development while still advancing his own board. I think if he didn't have a Lackey in his hand, there's more of an argument for just casting stuff this turn, and it looks like Jim's still just going to do that regardless. But I believe there is an argument for just holding up the 2 ports.
Port is going to tap something here. I imagine it's the Underground Sea. We'll see if it's a white land, though, and it will be the sea. So Smith is going to draw. He's got a Tropical Island, picked up a copy of Flooded Strand. We know he's got many, many powerful cards, both in deck and in hand.
And post-board, Erik has a lot more ways to break out of situations like this.
This is true.
He has his 2 copies of Zealous Persecution and his 2 copies of Supreme Verdict. So game 1, it's very hard for Erik to get out of spots like this where Jim has removal spells and is doing his Mana Denial thing, drawing some cards, but post-board, Erik has some easy ways to break out.
Oh, I guess the red Brainstorm is Browbeat. I missed that.
Browbeat's not a bad choice.
Yeah, that's the red Brainstorm. Maybe.
It's like Brainstorm, except 3 times as much mana, and your opponent, instead of you, gets to make all the meaningful decisions.
Yeah, so like the exact same card.
It's basically the same card.
Yeah.
It's also a sorcery.
Yeah. I don't see much of a difference.
Yeah.
Smith just plays a Tropical Island, going to pass the turn back. Davis going to untap here. See him treading very carefully. Wants to be pretty careful around a Snapcaster Mage at this point. Picks up another copy of Goblin Lackey.
And it looks like Erik has the ability to play Source of Plowshares, Snapcaster, cast another Source of Plowshares, or Brainstorm, or what have you.
Here comes Davis. Source of Plowshares, get the Lackey out of here. Is it time to Snapcaster Mage as well, or do we wait?
Because Erik can trade the Snapcaster Mage with the Ringleader, I believe he's going to want to save the Snapcaster for a juicier target, whether that's a really threatening creature out of Jim's deck that he wants to hit with a plow, or some sort of Brainstorm down the line.
Sure. Lackey does come in. Smith at the end of turn. Going to target Source of Plowshare, sacrifice Flooded Strand, find himself a white source. There's a scrub land. And there was a point in time when people were playing a lot of Snapcaster Mages to go along with Paths and Swords in Legacy. That's when Goblins was really not good. That was really hard to fight through.
Well, it doesn't seem like these waters are much friendlier that Jim is swimming in right now.
It's not great. It's not great.
He's been 2 for 1 nearly every turn of the match thus far, so. This game is going fine, though.
Take a look at the life totals.
That is true.
Everybody to know that she is having a big summer blowout, and that she'll be packing up to leave at 4. So why don't you?
So Jim right now is considering cycling Gem Palm and Center to get Snapcaster Mage off the board so he can keep trucking along here while shields are down for Erik Smith.
I think there's a good argument for it. The only thing that ports theoretically keeping Erik off of this point is Jace, and Jace is not even a very strong play right now with Jim having a Ringleader in play.
Yeah, can't bounce it.
Yeah.
So I think that Jim just wants to keep the board clear so his Ringleader can keep just coming on in.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea behind all of this.
Drawing a card here is nice too. It's not like this Gem Palm gets that much better, and Jim still has Pyrokinesis and Tarfire in hand, so it's not like he's short. It's not like this is his one removal spell he's clutching onto here.
The question, of course, is do I use Tarfire, do I use Gem Palm? I actually kind of like cycling here just to get yourself a little bit deeper in your deck and work with some more information. And I don't think the Gem Palm is going to get much better over the course of the game, because I don't think he's ever going to be able to amass a lot of goblins. So he's going to cycle Gem Palm with the swords in the stack, take care of the Snapcaster Mage, draw himself a card, send the copy of Gem Palm Incinerator, so that makes this easy enough.
Free.
Yeah, and
Totally
actually,
free.
Snappy actually took down Ringleader and not Lackey, which is a little bit surprising.
If Eric's planning on blocking with some 1-2s here, he's in for a rude awakening because Jim's hand is just flush with removal spells.
Snapcaster Mage the draw. Nothing to rebuy. Oh, Smith can start his turn off with a Brainstorm. Also has a fetch land, too.
Also can just play a land and cast Batterskull.
Well, that's not going to do it. We know that.
Jim can beat that.
Yeah, Jim can beat that pretty easily. And I think if you're Erik, you have to imagine he can beat that.
Yeah.
He's got 5 cards in his hand. Dirty Pugsley saying, what about Epiphany Storm for the Red Brainstorm? I don't even know what Epiphany Storm is. Do you know what Epiphany Storm is?
I cannot tell you the text box. I know the card that's being described, though.
Okay. Here's a Brainstorm to start. Path Exile, Jace, Polluted Delta.
Goblin Lore.
I suppose Goblin Lore could be. I think that's draw 3, discard 4, maybe draw 4, discard 3. Yeah, draw 4, discard 3. It's busted.
It's not a bad deal.
That sounds like the best card of all time.
If you were to build a red Reanimator deck, that card would probably make the cut.
By the way, it's discard 3 at random.
Oh,
Does that change anything?
that's like less likely, I guess.
Take a draw. Mogmore Marshall. Jim trying to slog through all of this.
Yeah. Although, Erik still hasn't closed the game out by any stretch.
Not at all. Here comes Lackey. There's a path. And if that can take care, that's cool. Because truth be told, Jim would actually like another land.
When he has Rashad and Ports in play, he's definitely in the market for more mana.
He wants as many lands as possible. And the fact that it's a mountain helps as well.
Yeah.
That's funny because, we're kind of speaking in jest about, how much better Erik's deck is than Jim's, and I think the power level of Erik's deck is much higher than Jim's, but this is honestly the way that Jim wants the game to go.
He's got a ton of sources of card advantage. He's able to remove Erik's most threatening cards. The creatures, being the creatures, keeping him off of that.
All he's doing right now is just picking his spots.
And now, for example, Jim can go, okay, I'm going to Matron for a Ringleader, play a Mog War Marshal. It's like, okay, that's another wave of stuff that Erik has to handle.
It's double port time, it looks like, for Davis. So he's figuring out which lands to tap here. Looks like it's going to be an Underground Sea and a Scrub land. So he wants to cut him off of black mana.
It's the only color he can cut him off of, except for green. That doesn't really matter.
Yep. As per Deathblade, the green is oftentimes only for the ability on Deathrite Shaman. Looks like Smith is going to... Looked like he may have considered using that fetch land to sacrifice and go get a Jace, but he's just going to pass the turn here.
Well, Jace is, with Jim with a 7-card hand, you can't imagine. If you go Jace Brainstorm, what do you think the odds are that you're untapping with that Jace?
Pretty low. Well, Davis commits something to the board here. Now, Vial is an interesting thing to actually draw for this turn. It's very slow. Davis just going to tap 1. I think he is going to commit to the Vial. He's going to commit to this Vial plus, I believe, Port Plan. He may add something more. It looks like maybe Mog War Marshal. Yeah, he's going to add that to the table now, too. See if this will... It will certainly resolve because it's going through the Cavern.
And Jim just making these little pushes every turn.
Yeah, it's all minor stuff. There's nothing crazy. Kind of remember, too, Jim Davis has actually top-aided a Grand Prix playing Goblins before. Yeah. He's also top-aided an extended Grand Prix playing Goblins in Dallas, and then he top-aided an Invitational in Indianapolis many years ago playing Goblins. So he's very experienced in playing this deck.
And let's keep in mind that before Owen Turtenwald was the Owen Turtenwald we know now, he was a Grand Prix finalist, I believe, with Goblins.
In Columbus during the Flash Grand Prix. Lost to Steve Staten in the finals.
Yeah.
That was young Owen.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, young Owen was very good.
Yeah.
Older Owen is phenomenal.
There's a long list of masters that have a history with the Goblin tribe.
That's true.
John Sani, Oh, a turret wall.
Yep.
Jim Davis, Max Teets.
Looks like we're going to tap something down here with the port. Jim just trying to decide what's it going to be. He says, all right, give me a Tundra. Deathrite Shaman in the draw here.
Now, Deathrite Shaman is setting up a pretty juicy pyrokinesis here for Jim as well.
You see the clock ticking down here. We're about to be underneath 15 minutes. These games between Goblins and these blue control decks, they do take a little while because both players are kind of posturing. As here's a Jace.
I mean, they both had pretty close to full hands for the whole game.
Absolutely. And now it's time to Fate Seal. Take a look. That card looks like it's probably going to go to the bottom. Smith thinking this one's a little too good. See Smith's hand right now. Supreme Verdict, Deathrite Shaman, Brainstorm, and a fetch land. Yep, so that's going to go to the bottom. And there's Deathrite. So now Jim has set up a pretty nice pyrokinesis. If he'd like to pull the trigger on that, and you see him bring it forward pretty quickly. So I believe he's thinking about doing that.
I would imagine at minimum Jim wants to untap first and see what's going on.
I think that's probably the case. Doesn't want to get, like, spell pierced randomly. Gonna let the Mog War Marshal die. So there's your token. Take a draw. This is a War Chief. Since he already has a War Chief, we could see him use that. For the pyrokinesis if he'd like. Again, he's been very patient the entire time here. There is pyrokinesis. He's going to move the Tar Fire in his hand, so 2 and 1. Or you can just do 2 and 2. Either way, those things are going to bite the dust unless Smith has a Force of Will.
And if he's willing to use Force of Will here, with Supreme Verdict in hand, he still may want to. He will still may just say, okay, that dies. And
yep. Davis now takes care of those creatures. If I'm in his spot here, we'll see how much he wants to move in. I think he's trying to figure out if he can kill him. He might actually be able to. He can play War Chief now. Then he can play Matron. He can play other War Chief too. So what he could have done this turn is I think he could have played War Chief, play Matron, and then with the Cavern get a Pile Driver, attack for a whole bunch. But that assumes that he's left Pile Driver in his deck after sideboard. And I think Pile Driver is horrible in this matchup after sideboard.
Just too many 1/2s and too many plows.
Yeah. It should never be able to do this. Now, I think what I would have liked more that turn if I'm Jim is playing War Chief, playing Matron, getting a Ringleader, and I still have got 5 power on the table to kill the Jace in case I do get Verdict or something like that, which looks like is what's going to happen here. Because he doesn't have a great way to refuel now. Verdict's going to clear everything, but more importantly, I actually want another War Chief in my hand for later.
Yeah. I think Jim was perhaps worried about a removal spell or something breaking it up, but in any case, a removal spell prevents him from killing the Jace, assuming there's a plow or path going to the War Chief. He's still short.
And I'm actually cool if a removal spell breaks that up, because that means my opponent is getting around to fetch land too.
Yeah.
For future Brainstorms and Jaces and stuff like that. So now here's a True Name Nemesis. The Fun Please has arrived. So Jim is going to untap. Shields are down, but he's got Caverns anyway, so that's no big deal. Up to 2 goes the Vial. Davis will take a draw. A Wasteland. A little late to the party. But that does give him mana. And that's land number 7. So if he would like to go Matron into War Chief here, or excuse me, Matron into Ringleader, that's not so bad. And I believe that's one of the better ways for him to get back into the game.
He's got to be concerned about getting hit with a Jitte next turn.
That's a very real concern.
So do you need to do something? Do you need to consider doing something preemptive like matroning for Tin Can? Tin Tree Hooligan.
Tin Can?
The Tin
How
Can
dare
man.
you? How dare you? Matron for the old Tin Can? Maybe. I think that you actually need to generate more cards at this point.
Okay.
I think that it's very realistic for you to Matron for Ringleader, or Ringleader into another Matron, or another Ringleader. Just get deep in your deck and try to overwhelm at this point. Looks like Davis is trying to figure out exactly what he wants to blow up with Wasteland. Again, he wants to just keep cutting the mana here. See if he wants to deploy a threat. You see him setting aside lands for ports. So he's going to go with the Tundras. He'll take a draw here. Will Smith. Looks like his hand is Brainstorm, Jitte. Davis still trying to run him out of options. There's Jitte. That's fine. In comes Smith with the True Name. Davis going to tick up to 3. There's a pile driver. So he actually did have that. Wow, that's really surprising. If he did have that, he may have been able to just win on that chase turn. Now, it's pretty easy for me to say just go for it if that's the case, because I know the opponent doesn't have swords or plow, or swords or path, but it doesn't mean necessarily that play is correct. But given how the game had gone up to this point, and how Smith had already cast a path and a couple of plows, even though some of them for Snapcaster Mage, I think I may have gone for it in that point. Gonna get a Matron. I'm gonna get a Tin Street.
So yeah, Jim not really planning on doing anything else with his mana this turn, so he wants to get another Goblin into play so the Jitte, he still keeps something in play even after Jitte's done his thing.
Now that turn is a little, like, it's good and it's bad, because what you're effectively doing there is you're wasting a Matron to leave something in play, when those Matrons can have higher value over the course of the game, because now he's got one less Matron to draw to.
Yes.
Brainstorm here for Smith is going to show 2 lands along with the Jace.
But maybe with Pile Driver in hand, has a precedent. He's taking priority of just like putting more stuff into play.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's different if he doesn't have Pile Driver in hand.
Yeah. In comes True Name. Dave's going to go down to 17. See what the follow-up is here for Smith. He's going to play a Deathrite Shaman. See him slide those lands over his hand right now with a Delta and a Brainstorm. Just passes the turn back over to Davis.
Eric's been really judicious with his use of Brainstorms over the course of this match. I've been a big fan.
Yeah, patient.
Yeah. Waiting until there's something specific he wants to do, not just casting them to cast them.
Dave's going to take a look at the cards that have been removed here. Figure out what he can draw to. If he wants to move the vial up, he wants to leave it at 3. Take a draw, he will. Siege Gang Commander. Decent draw, better when the vial's on 5. So you might actually see the elevator go up on vial now.
Yeah.
Then again, if Jim is seeking if Jim is sensing weakness, we could see him just cast Siege Gang this turn, because we saw him do that the last game. And this makes it so Smith really has a turn to get this off of the table. What we do know is Smith has a lot of ways to do that. So here's Siege Gang Commander. Trigger that. 3 tokens are going to come into play. Of course, no good attack here. Matron running into a 1-2. So all you can do is pass the turn back over to Smith, who picked up a copy of Batterskull for the turn.
I do like that play a lot from Jim. I just don't think time's really on his side right now. He's got to try to press his advantage. Something that may come up here, several turns ago when Jim drew that Wasteland, he had the opportunity to cut off one of Eric's lands, of course. He elected to get rid of a scrub land, even though Erik is really redundant with both black and white mana, in lieu of taking care of the Tropical Island, which is the only green source of mana Erik has in play, and I would suspect in his deck. Yes. So right now, this Deathrite Shaman does have the ability to remove creatures to gain life. That was something that Jim could have potentially cut him off of a few turns ago had he felt so inclined.
Yep. Oftentimes, only 1 drop. It's a Brainstorm. 2, 3.
Oh,
it's
boy.
a good Brainstorm. Zealous Persecution. I think another True Name as well. This is what you had to be scared of, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, another True Name and Zealous Persecution.
And just when it looked like Jim had crawled himself back in.
So there go all those. So now True Name gets to come across for 4. Davis is going to go down to 13.
Is the last card True Name Nemesis?
Oh, yes, it is.
That's not a bad Brainstorm.
Well, Jim will untap. Let's see where he wants to put that vial. I feel like now he may have to take it up to 4, because I think his best draw is Ringleader. Let's see what he draws. Put Rashad in port.
Well, he does have, yeah, I guess, yeah, Ringleader's got to be the best thing to pick up from this spot.
And Davis looks like he's going to go with a pile driver this turn, potentially.
I think he's going to want to cycle his Gem Palm Incinerator as well.
Yeah. So there is that. Here is this to take care of Deathrite Shaman.
Attention legacy players, that is the end of...
Fortunately for Davis here, it's removing an instant, I think, because I think it's harder for Jim to win if he's actually, if Smith is gaining life.
Yeah.
Please raise your hand and call for a judge. If you do not...
So Davis goes down to 13. You take a look at how the clock goes here. It goes, if both True Names attack, he goes from 13, it actually goes from 11 to 5. and then 5 to dead. But on the flip side, I think it's difficult for Smith to actually attack here with both. See what his top card is. You see Davis is going to play a copy of Arid Mesa.
I believe it is Batter Skull.
That makes things hard.
But this game is still winnable for Jim next turn. The pile driver does give him some hope. Finds a ringleader, finds a matron.
There's that. I think this is a situation he's going to go down to 4. I think this is a situation where you have to take the vial up, because I think you are better off, again, drawing a ringleader and vialing it for free and then casting whatever you draw.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you have the mana to put in a matron with the vial and then tap 4 mana to cast your ringleader. And I think in this situation, your ringleader is your best draw anyway. So we'll see if he ticks up to 4 if he leaves it at 3.
But ringleader gives Jim a real shot at winning this game.
Yep. And as you mentioned, 10 Street's actually a great draw. He's going to take it up to 4 right now. Let's see what he draws for the turn. That's another pile driver.
Yeah, doesn't do it.
Attack here with both of the creatures. You put pile driver. Pile driver gets in front of Batter Skull. You sacrifice it before damage, put him to 7. Siege Gang puts him down to 5. The other pile driver puts him down to 3. Siege Gang puts him down to 1.
Yeah.
That is not none. Also, I don't think he has enough mana to actually. He has 3 red mana, so I think he's a red mana short from doing all of that. But even if he had all of the mana to do that, it still would not be lights out.
Right. Well, he's short raw mana too, right? He has a port.
He has a
hand.
land in his hand, yeah, but he's actually he has enough raw mana. He doesn't have enough red mana. That's the problem. And so he's going to attack with everybody here and kind of hope for the best. Yeah, so in front of Pile Driver we go. And Jim is going to say, all right, sacrifice this before damage.
Yeah,
so you don't gain any life.
Yeah, there's no way out here.
So he throws it upstairs. Smith is going to go down to 7, assuming our life totals are all correct, and they are. Jim Davis is going to concede this match. Erik Smith is going to win here. 2-0. Esper Deathblade gets the job done over Goblins, and you can see the power level in the decks. Esper Deathblade is just a high-powered, all-good-stuff deck, and what Goblins is doing is powerful, but it's not as powerful as it used to be.
Jim fought so hard that second game, too.
Yeah.
I mean, there was obviously many of those lines were sculpted over the course of several turns, but again, it's just too many cards that he has to answer immediately or he loses the game.
Yep.
And that isn't even the end of the match. I mean, there's then the stuff that's happening on the second wave that Erik has access to that is also problematic for Jim. So you saw he was able to mostly handle the equipment element of Jim's deck, which is the thing you associate being the biggest problem. But then the sweepers, Supreme Verdict and Zealous Persecution in the sideboard ended up really dooming Jim that game.